there is I think just a natural attraction for just human beings to music. And we make a lot of different things here. We make, aerospace products, medical products. We make a lot of automotive products. And you can tell somebody that, but when you say music or music strings or guitar strings, there's an instant, just awakening with people. So when I say somebody's going to be here from NAMM and they're going to talk about what we do with the music industry, nobody says no. They're just, people perk up. If I said, the guy's coming here to talk to us about the cigarette lighter bracket that we make, it would be hard to drum up a crowd for you. But from NAMM, everybody wants to talk about the music industry.
That's cool. Well, Howard, maybe we can start with understanding a little bit of your own background. Where did you grow up?
We're in Owensboro, Kentucky, our factory is, and I grew up about 10 miles south of town on a little tobacco and cattle farm. And I went to school here locally, and then I went away to college. I tell people I was a Rhodes Scholar, ROAD. I went to 4 or 5 colleges before I could graduate from one, but I graduated from college and worked a couple of jobs here locally. And I lived for a while in Knoxville, Tennessee, worked there for about a year, and then came back to Owensboro and started working for Ken-tron in 1999.
What was the direction of your career? What other path did you have?
Really everything I've ever done has been kind of in the sales arena. So I've always done something that involves sales.
And was that your first position here?
It was, yes. Yes, I've always done something in the sales function here too. And I work a little bit with our quality system too. We have a quality system called AS9100. And we do a lot of aerospace work. And you're required to have that certification to do aerospace work. So, I really don't do anything there. The people that come in to check up on us and to audit us, I just make sure they meet the right person. I don't really have any true ability, Dan. I just talk a lot. And I know who does know. I don't know, but I know who does know.
Maybe that's just as important.
It might be. It's like a phone book.
Yeah, right. Okay, kids, a phone book is
that's right. Good point. Yes. I just dated myself, and now I don't have to tell you how old I am.
That's right. I love this line.
I'm a search engine.
When you say something like, kids, that's a very old-fashioned statement.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Funny. So what was your first impression of Ken-tron when you came here?
I don't think I'd ever been in a factory. And when I came here, the first thing they do is they show you around in the factory and show you what each person does throughout the factory. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I've made a horrible mistake. This is not for me. But it kind of grew on you. The thing that became the most interesting to me is all the different things that we do for all the different end products. Nobody but somebody at the factory of our customer or a repairman, nobody's ever going to see most of the things that we make. It's the guts or the internal components of products. We don't really make any end product, but it became fascinating to me of all the different things we touched and all the different things we were a part of.
Yeah, that's really cool. I felt that same way when Bob, the founder, or we call it owner.
Yes.
Let me start that again. I agree with you. When Bob, the owner, was talking, it was really amazing to think about, those little wires and tubes for radio or television. What are some of the applications that fascinate you that you guys do?
Very similar to what you said, just not only what you do now, but just kind of the history of the industrial age almost of the United States. They made vacuum tube parts when they first came here. They kind of grew into killer television parts. That grew into, I think they talked to you a little bit earlier about EDM wire. That's electrical discharge machining. You started becoming a little more modern. They started working with the music industry. They started making medical and aerospace parts and wires. So it's, it just really, as as manufacturing in America, the simpler and the more crude things kind of offshored and went to like lower cost countries and lower cost labor countries. If you weren't going to manufacture things in the US, you had to become more technological savvy, or you had to move up the ladder to more technological industries. And that's really what everybody that's still manufactured in the US has done. And certainly Ken-tron is one of those, or follows that same path.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's also, you were speaking a little while ago. I wonder if you could repeat yourself about the companies that you provide product to can be large and they can be very small.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, especially in the music industry, you're selling stuff to people that everybody's heard of. You're selling to Ernie Ball and to D'Addario and Martin and people like that even people not involved in the music industry or the guitar world, they've heard of those people. But, you're selling to people that are making, strings in their garage too. And people will call us. And when you answer the phone, or when you call them and they answer the phone, you can hear that they've just turned the machine off and it's kind of, just kind of idling down so they can answer the phone. So, the guy that's the owner and the salesperson and the manufacturer, it's all the same person. So you get to know somebody like that and you get to see their business grow, or you can, I guess my team never has a parade. I root more for the underdog a lot of times. So you really have a special sense or a special love for somebody like that that you're shipping one of those really large companies of pallets of wire. And if one spool's bad, that's not what you want, but it happens. And they just kind of move on and they contact you and, you reimburse them or whatever. But a guy like that in his garage, if you're only selling him a box of wire that can last weeks, if one spool of it has a problem, you've messed that guy up possibly for months. You could run an order for him. So you really kind of live and die with those people from on your heartstrings, I guess you would say. You have more of a sense that it really, really, really matters to somebody like that. Not that it doesn't to the big people, but you have a sympathetic feel for those really small guys. And all over the world, you're selling wire to people in the U.S., but, there's people in Central America, South America, all across Europe and Asia. It's amazing to be able to talk to people like that, I think. You get emails in the middle of the night from somebody, in Asia and in other parts of the world. That really, to me, is the exciting part about it.
Yeah, that's really neat. Howard, I wonder if you could walk us through the process when you guys get the raw material and when it leaves here, and then what do the next people do with it to make a guitar string? Could you help us with that?
Sure. So we buy wire on really large spools, or they call them stems, which look like, maybe if you think about it, like the cowboy movies, you see they have their lasso wrapped around their saddle. We get wire that looks kind of like that, and it's on stems, or it's on kind of a vertical post that the wire's on, and the wire is really big, and we're really just stretching the wire. It's in oil or in like water-based lubrication, and it goes through a series of die, and each die makes the wire a little bit smaller when it pulls it through. So you're pulling it just enough to not break it and to not make it so brittle that you can't do anything else with it, but you're pulling it through to make it the smaller diameters. So we're making like nickel-plated steel for electric guitars. You're doing that for pedal steel guitars. You're making the like copper alloys like brasses and phos bronzes and other alloys like that for the acoustic guitar industry. When you pull it through, it gets harder. It work hardens, as they say. So we also have to anneal it. So we have electric furnaces that each wire goes through a tube, and in that tube is a hydrogen atmosphere, and that keeps it from oxidizing or turning dark as it goes through that heat. So we'll draw it a little bit or make it smaller. we'll put it in an annealing furnace and kind of soften it back up so we can draw it more. And we repeat that however many times we have to get to that final diameter. We sell almost all of it to the music industry on spools. So the most common spool you'll see is kind of a royal blue 5-pound spool. And we'll ship however many of those are ordered to the customer. And they make the strings on, it kind of looks like a lathe, and they have a core wire that is usually a steel wire. Some of them are round and some of them are shaped, and that will be like the bottom 3 strings of a traditional guitar, and then the top 3 strings are the wrapped wires typically. So that's where you start getting the nickel-plated steels for the electric, or the copper alloys for the acoustic. And then they have this machine that looks kind of like a lathe, and it spins that core wire, and then they can apply the wire off the spool to that, and it'll just race down that spinning core wire, and that's how you get that wrapped string. And it's kind of funny for us because you'll go to these different string makers, no matter how large or small they are, and you'll see what they're doing, and they'll say, "Now don't tell the other folks that you sell to about this." But it's funny from the aspect that when you go to everybody else, they're doing exactly the same thing. And it's like, well, I didn't tell them, but, the secret's out because they're all kind of doing the same thing. But it's really interesting to see. It's interesting to see different people have subtle different approaches with what they're doing with their strings. They have colors. They mix materials sometimes. They have double wound strings, they have, flattened strings. It really kind of runs the gamut after it gets to them, but it's all basically the same process.
Yeah, very interesting. That's really cool. I can tell you guys have a sense of pride about this too.
I think we do. Yeah, you do. I mean, when you see somebody playing on stage, you think, gosh, that could be, there's a real chance that that's our wire. So yeah, you have a sense of accomplishment and a sense of pride about that.
Yeah, that's really neat. One of the other things I'm kind of curious about is the aerospace aspect. What do you guys do for that industry?
Most of what we do involves the engine. So we're involved in the jet engines. It's different kind of seals. There are different kind of like brackets and just a variety of parts and wire that go into the engines. We've done a couple of little things here and there for satellites and for other things like that, but the vast majority of it is the engine work for the jet engines. That is unique, and it's so documented, and there has to be such a chain of records because it's so important and it's so vital, obviously, because of what they're doing. But an example of that is a few years ago, we had a company call and they said, we've got a rocket on the launch pad and it has a satellite in it. And in the satellite, it has some pins in it that you made the wire for in the middle 1990s. And we just discovered that we don't have a material cert for those pins. So we can't launch the rocket because it's got the satellite that we don't have a cert for. So can you get us a cert so we can launch that rocket in the morning? And you're like, oh my gosh, all this paperwork we do, people really do look at it. So it's the paperwork and all the quality things you do are so vital in that industry, in the medical industry. And it's hard to let up on something like that. It's hard to kind of have your foot in two camps. So just almost by default, we apply that same effort and that same chain of events and that same quality standards to our music wire and the other things we do too. So I think that shows in what we do. I think people see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good... Yeah, I remember the first time I heard about your company, I think that was one of the first things it said is, you know what you're going to get.
Good. That's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you want. You don't want people to go, ugh, those guys. No, we appreciate that. And again, it's fun. People, I just don't know how to say it other than there just seems like to be a natural attraction. And you know this better than anybody. All the people you have talked to from the different aspects of the music industry, there's just a natural attraction to music, and it's just people are just drawn to it. So when that's part of your work, it's a double benefit.
Yeah, and that passion.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It is. It is. People talk to you a lot about a specific entertainer that they've met or that they've come across at a NAMM show. And just by that you can tell that it makes such a difference to people, and they remember it forever that they met that person that was a musical entertainer by going to a NAMM show, and that's why you have people like that come to your shows.
Yeah.
Right. People remember that, and they're drawn to that.
Yeah, and today you're reminding me that this industry is so great because we can be passionate about wire.
Yes.
Yes. It's okay. It's okay.
Right. That's right.
It's okay.
That's exactly right. Yeah, several years ago, one of our customers, they do everything. They do strings, they do drum heads, they just the gamut of musical items, and they bought a factory or a company that makes the reeds for like woodwind instruments, and they bought while I'm talking, I forgot it, but it was like I think it was bamboo, but it was two farms that grow the reed material. And it was like one was in the south of France and one was in South America. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's a tough gig there. But you just never think about something like that. That's a part of it too. And, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to grow it. The place where we get our wire for a lot of our copper and brass raw material, the copper mine is right beside the factory where they make the wire rod or the wire raw material, and then it comes on an ocean liner to us, and then we draw it down, ship it on, and people all over the world turn it into music strings. So, there's a guy or a gal mining copper in a mine so somebody can play, whatever, a song, any classical music or country music or rock or Americana. It all starts with that guy mining copper in a copper mine in South America. Now, to me, that kind of stuff, that's what makes it easier to come to work every day, because you're part of that chain, that link. That's exciting.
No doubt. That's really, really cool. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about the atmosphere here among the employees. What sort of feel do you have here?
I think everybody has said to you that it's like a family, and it really is. I mean, I think that, some people are more people than others, but everybody here knows who everybody is. It's kind of a small company. We have about 60 employees, but you know who they are, their kids, if their kid's sick, if something's wrong with one of their parents, you're just kind of dialed into everybody. That's changed a little bit. I know people have talked to you a lot about turnover, and I think it's changed. The thing I see, when I started here, I was one of the young guys, but now I'm starting to be one of the old guys, so that's a little troubling. But the thing you see too, or that I see, I think that's changed a little bit with the smartphone. You used to go into the break room or the lunchroom, or it used to be when people were just kind of hanging out, they were talking to each other. I mean, now you see the tops of a lot of people's heads. They're looking at their phones a lot. So, I mean, I kind of worry about stuff like this, but I worry if people know as much about each other as they used to because of the technology like that. But I still do. I mean, I still try to talk to people, and it's a small town too. So you're like, oh yeah, who's your mom, or who's your dad, or yeah, I know them. So I'm always trying to make a connection. And I think most people are.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in this industry, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the music industry is very much that way. NAMM has done a phenomenal job. I mean, as you have talked about, we have our finger in a lot of pies. So we touch a lot of industries, the automotive industry, the aerospace industry, the medical, but none of them have that kind of, I don't know the right word, but there's just everybody in the music industry knows that other person, or they know the guy that works at the other place more than than any other industry that we come in contact with. And I think a great deal of that has to be credited to NAMM. That, you said it earlier in another conversation, there's like kind of an old home week at least once a year, or, several times a year when you go to these big NAMM events. We have an aerospace customer that we talk to regularly. And we were talking one day just about other stuff and, where are you from and that kind of stuff. And his dad was an engineer in the guitar string industry for years. So you're just constantly making connections. But I think NAMM gets a lot of credit for that too.
I appreciate that. That's cool. So what was your first NAMM show?
I have been to the Nashville show many times, and then you moved it around a little bit there, and I went to the Indianapolis show. I've never been to the California show or another show. I get the Poughkeepsie trips and the Cleveland trips. Toledo. Not to disparage Ohio in any way, but they don't send me to California. They send me to the guy that's having a problem.
We have
a firefighter.
We have two cities that we use in that, and no disrespect, but Sheboygan and Elkhart.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You spent a week there one night. Yes.
So, yes. Howard, we got to get you to Anaheim.
I know. I would love that.
Experience.
I would love to do that.
Work on that.
I would love to do that.
What I can do to help with that.
I will.
Okay.
I will. We'll come up with some special project where I'm required.
Maybe we'll write a special letter to Rick.
Do that.
It's mandatory.
Do that.
We're on the brink of not having a show if Howard doesn't come.
Do that. I would like that.
That'd be great.
I would like that.
Well, we sure appreciate this. Is there anything else you want to add?
Oh, it's just so great that you guys could come here and do this. It means a lot to us to be a part of this industry, and it's just there's just a sense of helping people too. You go to a factory like Martin, where we've been several times, and they're such craftsmen. They're hand making a guitar, and you see it on the back end, and you just feel such a sense of pride of being a part of that. Or you go to these companies like Paladar, which become Ernie Ball strings, and you see what they're doing. And one of the things that I think we see a lot is that how it was a little more loosely organized when we first became a part of this industry, but how it's become much more scientific and much more technical. And you see those changes, and you see those really big companies like that, like Paladar, that have really, they're really on the forefront of that development. And it's just exciting to be a part of all of that.